Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and we're going over this celebrity legal news. We're still going over the United States of America versus Sean Combs. And baby, we're going to get into this curious case of Capricorn Clark. Now, as we go in, make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. Now, as I've been doing this, we've been going over and reviewing the case of Sean Diddy Combs. I kept talking about this particular assistant that I saw on television and, you know, talking about what it meant to be an assistant for Sean Combs. And now we're starting to see who I was talking about, Miss Capricorn Clark. Now, I will tell you the image, when I tell you the image that she presented on screen versus what we see now is night and day. Night and day. So I wanted to kind of go over this curious case of Capricorn Clark. Now, if you are not familiar, Capricorn Clark did testify in court about Sean Diddy Combs and her employment with Sean Diddy Combs. Now, this young lady went through a lot. She talked about being hired. She said that a headhunter came to her and said that Sean Combs was looking for an assistant. She started her career at Def Jam after having a high school internship. And then she went from there, then she went to Death Row. And then from there, she talked to a headhunter. A headhunter got her a job with Sean Combs. She gets this job with Sean Combs. And she says she's hired. She's doing the work. She said about 9 o'clock that evening, he tells her they're going to Central Park. She don't think anything of it. She goes to Central Park, and he basically threatens her, saying, why didn't you tell anybody that you worked with Suge Knight? And she was like, I was headhunted to work here. I had it on my resume. Why didn't anybody look at my resume to see that I had worked there? If it was a problem, somebody should have said something earlier. And he basically told her that if he had anything to do with Suge Knight, and if anything happened, he would have her pruned from the timeline. But she stayed. Now, again, you have to look at her background as well. She had said that once she had started working her internship or whatever at Def Jam, both of her parents had died. So, and then plus she's from California, who is relocated to New York. And so she's looking at the fact that here I am, and here I am, and I want to do a good job. I want to show that I can do a good job. So of course she's going to sit and she is going to do a good job, I guess. Try, don't get me the line. Anyway, a lot of different things happened. She talked about that. She talked about a point in the employment where the jewelry had gone missing. It was some jewelry that Sean Combs had on Lynn from Jake the Jeweler. He wore it to a white party. He was going to Miami. When he was going to Miami, she said that she couldn't find it. It went missing. So they did a 5-day. They took her to a building which was now before it was, but now is known as the Bad Boy headquarters. They took her to a building and they interrogated her for 5 days. They let her go home and go to sleep, but they interrogated her with a lie detector test for 5 days. And I guess, I don't even know, I don't remember if she testified. I have to go back and check. But she testified that after 5 days, and after them searching her home, they let her go back to work. And she said no one from Sean Combs or nobody said anything about this jewelry afterwards, which was interesting. She said she was scared. She was scared, and the reason that she was scared, and I'm just going to quote what she said. She said that the person who was giving her the lie detector test said, and I quote, if she failed the test, she was told that she'd be thrown in the East River. She said that she was scared. All right. She said that she worked typically from 7 a.m. to end around 4 a.m. because she said that she barely slept, and she ended up getting stress alopecia where her hair was falling out. Those are too long of hours to work for somebody. And she's saying that they owed her $80,000 in overtime pay and he refused to pay it. No one would 7 a.m. to 4 a.m. That those are labor laws that are broken in the first place. No one is to work like that and not get many breaks. She talked about what her job was as an assistant, and it's very consistent with everybody else's job. She made sure that he had the stuff that he needed. She made sure that his hotels were set up. Uh, she said they were usually reserved in the names of Frank Black, Frank White. She said that she would unpack all of his belongings. She did say that she would unpack the baby oil and the lubricant and the mood enhancers. She said along with the cameras, IV drips, and all kinds of stuff. She said those things were there and prepared in the hotel room. She talked about a couple. She's talked about a couple incidents, and I know the big incident was with Kid Cudi, but she also talked about an incident in Miami in 2006 uh, at Star Island, where she was saying that he didn't want her to leave the island, but then he turned around and asked her to transport someone to another place. She does that. He calls her back and he calls and says, "Where are you? Why did you leave?" And then she was miserable. You know, she works from 7 a.m. to 4 a.m. She has to get back up and make sure it happens. He gets breakfast and all this other stuff again. And so she had just confided into the chef. Now, here's the interesting thing. That same chef is the same chef that David James talked about, that he had had words with and he had put his hands on, and also is the same chef that Diddy had words with that he had put his hands on. So she's just venting, and then this woman goes and tells Sean Combs that she says she don't like it there. Girl, it had gotten to the point where Sean Combs was upset, and he started pushing her and pushing her and pushing her and pushing her out the house. So that tells me that everybody could get it. Everybody could get it. Now, she did talk about in her employment that she had left. She had gone. She'd left. She'd gone. I think she had worked with Jive Records. He liked what he saw when she was working at Jive Records, and he asked her to come back in a different role. She wouldn't be working up under him, and that must have been during the time she did the television show. But anyway, she had a different role. She was working there. But anyway, let's get down to the main stuff. The main stuff to me was this whole situation with Kid Cudi. Now, y'all, she described a couple of things, and I think that this is where the prosecution is getting the kidnapping charge from. She said that she woke up early one morning, someone was knocking at her door, and when she went to go see, she saw that it was Puff Diddy pacing in front, back and front. She was curious because she was like, how did he get in? Because she lived in a gated community. How did he get in? So, she opens the door. She said he opens the door. He has a gun in his hand. And he was like, who is Scott? Who is Scott? How's she dating Scott? Did you know Scott? Whatever, whatever. And I guess during that conversation, she said, that's Kid Cudi. Well, he took the day. She says, I don't want to have anything to do with it. He says, you're going to put your clothes on, because he's waving the gun in an effort to show her that he has a gun and he's in control of that situation. Told her to go put her clothes on. They were going to go. And so, a lot of people say, well, he didn't point it at you. It doesn't matter. Anybody that presents you a gun, if you see somebody and they present you a gun, and if you have been a gun owner, if you've been any of those things, anybody does that, they are meaning to make sure that you do what they say. Let's continue. She said that he was upset. She said that the bodyguard, who everyone was just talking about as an associate, we now know his name was Ruben. And we also know that he was a brother to D-Rock. So D-Rock, who was a bodyguard, and Reuben were brothers. We understand that now. That D-Rock drove Combs and Clark to Kid Cudi's house. She said that they went into his home. They were parked. She was parked on the street. They left her in the car. They go into the home. She says she calls uh Cassie, and Kid Cudi is back in the back talking about who's home there, who's home there. And she explains her situation. She says somehow, some way, Diddy gets back to the car. Kid Cudi pulls up. Uh, and from Kid Cudi testimony, it was like there was nobody there at the house. And he went into the house. But according to Capricorn Clark, she said that there was a almost a high speed chase. Said Kid Cudi came and he stopped, he looked, and then he drove off. And they said that Combs and his party with Capricorn Clark, they drove off too. And then they said as soon as they had driven off, they heard the sirens. And so I guess Kid Cudi, and it was a whole big kerfluffle. I couldn't figure out how Capricorn Clark got back to. Yes, I can. Capricorn Clark went back over to the hotel where Kid Cudi and Cassie was at. She explained to them that Cassie, you had to go back or something was going to happen to them. And Cassie, the way she testified, Cassie was acting all obtuse, like she didn't. You really think he would hurt anybody, baby? He was rumple pump thumping on you. Why would you not think he wouldn't hurt anybody? And I think I don't know if it was during that point in time, because this happened in 2013, going into 20, and I think this was all around the time that he hurt your friend. Of course, he was going to rumble thump on somebody else, girl. And I understand all that. I understand. And I understand that, trauma does a whole lot of stuff to different people. But it just, the way she testified as I was reading the transcript, it just seemed like she didn't think that anything was really going to happen. And somehow, some way, Kid Cudi goes back to his home. He sees his stuff is messed up. I guess he takes Cassie. Somebody takes Cassie to Diddy's house. And from that particular time, he went to stomping on her, from what Capricorn Clark says. And she was made to walk home. And she said as she turned the corner, she could still see him stomping on this girl. Now, she ended up getting away. And then because we did hear from Kid Cudi's testimony that he took her to Connecticut. But the part that we didn't get, which was interesting, was the fact that Capricorn Clark called Cassie's mother. And this is how Cassie's mother knew that she had been hurt, because of the fact that Capricorn Clark had called her. And that's why when Cassie got to Connecticut with her mother, that's why she was so hell-bent into taking pictures of the bruises. Oh, Lord. Let's see. She also talked about that she was very clear and very afraid because of the fact that he had already had her do a lie detector test for 5 days. And also he had talked about throwing her in the East. I mean, he had threatened her in Central Park. So she was feeling like this was going to be par for the course. And she left and she went to go work with someone else. When she was working with someone else, he saw that she was doing such a good job. And I think she did something with R. Kelly. I can't pinpoint all of that, but that she did some work and things for R. Kelly. He went and paid. She was making like $80,000 there. She goes back to Puff, but she doesn't ever make that money. And plus, the human resource folks said that Puff them owed her not $80,000 and she didn't get it. Now, she did say before the defense crossed her that she had settled with him with the money. She didn't disclose how much that settlement was, but she did. So the defense comes up and they were able to score some points. They scored the fact that, she had left, she had been threatened. And they were asking, if you've been threatened so many times, why would you stay? She says, listen, I had an autistic son. There was nobody but me. I needed this particular job. Uh, I liked my job. I didn't like the threats or anything like that. I felt like she said she was in the era where he was just where Puffy was just using drugs casually. She said after she had left, she saw that he had started to really get down deep into drugs. For some reason, she felt like she could be his protector or keep him from using as many drugs as she could. She also talked about the drugs. She talked about her pay. They brought up the fact that there was some texts and things that she said where she had a crush on him. She said that she liked him. She thought, I guess she said she thought he was handsome or anything, but nothing came of it. But she did like him. She said she loved him. She loved Cassie. She said because she was able to come back because she would be working with Cassie. She said the only thing is that even though she was the marketing person over Cassie, she couldn't do anything. It always had to be run by Diddy. So even if they had big and great ideas, Diddy was in control of those big ideas. And I think even though it was the defense that said that, it came out through the defense testimony, cross examination, it still hit home that he was coercing Cassie to do what he wanted her to do because he had control over her career. She had a 10-album deal. So anyway, they also talked about that here recently she was even trying to get a job. She explained, yes. She said that, with all the stuff that happened, he had blackballed her in the industry, and the only place that she could go was to go back to Diddy. And so she was trying to figure out how she could do that because, again, she has a child to raise. And she had been blackballed in the industry. People wouldn't hire her. So this was a very curious case, in my opinion. It was like, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot to take in. And it was a lot for any one person to go through. I could see why her hair was falling out. Because even as she left the court, you could see, they were wrong for showing the top of her head, but you could see the tape that she had in her head and stuff like that. But if you know, you know. Just curious for me, seeing her as being, remembering her on that show where she was very confident and everything, and to see and hear how people described her on the stand with her crying, looking frail, but answering questions. So it is interesting, and I think what's happening with the cross examination and Diddy's team, they're going to take everything with the women and say, oh, well, you had a choice. You didn't have to be there. You had a choice. And with someone like Capricorn, possibly, and I do say possibly because she understood what he could do. She understood what he could do because look at the fact that he blackballed her and told her that she was going to be so low that she was going to want to prune herself from the timeline. We will talk about Diddy and his and what from what I'm hearing from the testimony, he has a certain disdain for certain women, and I know people will say, "Well, he said he loved Kim Porter, Kim Porter, Kim Porter, Kim Porter." Baby, we have understood that he was putting her head between the washer and dryers too. Why is it that when she passes away, that's when he realizes who she was to him? All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, what are we thinking about this curious case of Capricorn Clark? The curious information that she has provided. Now, what did she do her job for the prosecution? Did she get us closer to the racketeering charge? Y'all put it down in the comments. Y'all, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.